Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. So glad to have you along with us as we talk about this history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle right here, primarily in the great state of Michigan, occasionally beyond. As I look at the rundown this week, it's all Michigan all the time, though. I like that. Somebody said once, you know, Avery, you got a good show. I like it, but it's too much Michigan. Can you have too much Michigan? I mean, honestly, the broadcast version of this show, which is the primary focus of this show, airs on Michigan radio stations, so it's going to be a Michigan program. So how are you? What's going on in your world? Have you had a chance to get outdoors and do anything fun since our last conversation? I'll be honest with you, I really haven't. Continue to be involved in some other projects, but things are going to change here soon. I have noticed, though, maybe you have as well, the days are starting to get really long. I mean, on a sunny day like it is today as we're here in the studio, the world, Mother Nature, starts to wake up pretty early now, and I like it. I like it. What I don't like is the northeast winds. Now, as I look at the weather forecast for this weekend, it could go either way. It looks like we're going to start getting some warmer temperatures, which to my mind means we'll probably get some southwest winds. But so far this spring, we've had a lot of northeast winds, and I hope that's not a precursor. I hope that's not a sign for what the summer's going to look like, because where I am, my part of the state, and I spend much of the summer on Saginaw Bay, those northeast winds are killer. We do not like northeast winds. So I'm hoping Mother Nature calms down, it gets a little warmer, we start to see some southwest winds, and all will be wonderful in the world. What else is going on? We have goslings on the pond behind the house now, those giant flying rats, also called Canada geese. They're not Canadian geese because they don't have a Canadian passport. They're Canada geese. And they have little ones now. And I will admit, when those little fuzzy things are floating and swimming on the pond behind the house with their parents, their adults, their mom and dad, if you can put human traits on them, which I hate to do, they're very cute. As long as they stay out there in the pond. Don't come up in the yard. We don't want to see you in the yard. Stay on the pond. All will be great. Something else related to that pond. I actually saw my first osprey fishing on that pond. And I'm not even sure I had ever seen an osprey before, that I knew was an osprey. And this bird, when it flew in, I thought, oh, there's an eagle. Because it had a white head. It didn't have a white tail feather. I thought, well, that's odd, but it's a big bird. Obviously, it's a bird of prey. It's out there hunting in the pond. And then it hovered, which is something I've never seen a bird do before. At least I've never seen an eagle do it before. So, okay, it's not an eagle. It doesn't have a white tail. What is it? It's a bird of prey. It's got a white head, and now it's hovering. And now it's diving into the pond to fish. It's an osprey, which is pretty cool because I'd never seen an osprey before. So not only do we have the occasional eagle that flies through, we now have an occasional osprey that comes in to fish on the pond. I think that's pretty cool. I have not been turkey hunting since we last talked because you might know my goal for this season is to hunt with my grandson Trent and to get Trent a bird. Trent has been out of town on a little mini family vacation, other side, to go to a wedding in Florida. By the time you hear this radio show, he will be back in Michigan. I'm tied up the first part of the weekend, but the second part, Trent, maybe you and I can go out hunting, and maybe we can get a bird. I'm still perplexed at the lack of birds, and now I'm talking about not as I'm hunting, I'm talking about as I drive around. I made a drive across the state earlier in the week over to the Grand Rapids area, and didn't see, I think I saw one bird, one strutter, and maybe a hen or so. What's up with the diminished turkey population or the diminishing turkey population? We will talk about that in this week's show. May, a reminder, is the time to apply for your Michigan bear and elk license. You get your application. You should apply. I will apply. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to get an elk tag. I'm not going to get an elk tag, but you might get a bear tag. If you don't apply for your elk tag, you certainly won't get an elk tag. But of the tens of thousands of people who apply for Michigan elk tags, something like 200 people get them. I will continue to put my hopes on the pure Michigan hunt, where the odds are a little bit better. Anyway, if you want to apply for a Michigan bear or elk tag, May is the time to do it. Here's what I think I'm going to do this year. I will apply for a Michigan elk tag, but I will apply for a bull tag, which puts my odds even more insignificant. It diminishes my chances of getting a tag even more. Is that stupid? I don't know, probably. Should I just apply for a cow tag? Probably. But I think what I'll do this year is I will apply once again for a Michigan bull elk tag. Or maybe this, maybe not this. Maybe in the regular drawing, I will apply for a Michigan cow tag. I will also apply for the pure Michigan hunt. And when I win that, not if, when I win that, I will get my bull elk tag. I think I'm only applying for a point for the Michigan bear hunt this year, and I will go to White River, Ontario in August to hunt. So I'll still get my bear hunting passions addressed. Now, I'll go up there about mid-August, August 15th, which will be, oh boy, that'll be shortly after the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing coming up Friday, July 25th at the beautiful West Branch Country Club in beautiful West Branch in beautiful Ogemaw County. Love to have you there. We will fill the field this year as we did last. This is a fundraiser to raise money for MUCC's youth camp. If Mike Avery is going to be involved in a golf outing, there's going to be an outdoor angle on it. There's going to be a fundraising angle, and it's going to be involved in helping kids get into the outdoors. It's a win-win-win-win. There's no downside to it. I'm partnered with MUCC on this. They are running the backside of it. They're doing all the hard work. They're carrying the water, to use a cliche. If you want to sign up, go to the website, mucc.org/golf, mucc.org/golf, and sign up to get involved in the outing. License fee increases here in our great state of Michigan. People keep asking me about this. They say, when are our license fees going up? And people don't like it. They're not going up for this year, right? They're not, because everything has already been printed. You can already buy licenses for this year. Those rates are locked in. What about 2026? Well, they will quite possibly go up in 2026, maybe go up in 2026. By 2027, we will definitely have a license fee increase. That's going to be across the board. What is the amount going to be? I can't tell you yet. What are the details on it? They are just now being proposed. Details on that coming up. In fact, details and possibilities coming up on that in this week's show. What about the possibility of a bait license to allow us to use bait for whitetails and elk in the Lower Peninsula? At least one Michigan legislator has proposed that with something like a $20 or $25 fee to get a bait license to allow us to bait. My humble opinion, ain't going to happen. Would I like to see it happen? Yes. Is it going to happen? I don't think so. And why do I say it's not going to happen? For one, it does not have the support of the DNR. And people are on the DNR's rear end about this. Well, how can you say for so many years that baiting causes CWD, so you've banned baiting, and now you want to impose a $20 or $25 bait license to allow us to do it? It's not the DNR pushing for it. DNR is still adamantly and vehemently against it. I do not believe you will ever see the Michigan DNR in favor, in support, and propose a bait license because they've painted themselves into a corner now. They have spent so much time and so many resources promoting the fact that CWD is bad that they can never now turn around and say, well, it's bad, but yes, you can bait in limited quantities in counties that don't have CWD. It's not going to happen, in my humble opinion. This is Mother's Day weekend, by the way. Happy Mother's Day weekend to you moms. God bless you. You are the glue that holds the family together. My mom, Peggy, my wife, Denise, my daughters-in-law are all moms now. God bless you. Happy Mother's Day. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, May is Stroke Awareness Month. I am now more aware of strokes than I ever was before, but we're going to talk to Dr. Brian McFalda about that. And this pertains to outdoors men and women. Then Kerry Heckman from the DNR talking about how the ice storm affected northern Michigan. Greg McClinchey on the war on sea lampreys. Justin Tomei on those proposed license fee increases. Al Stewart on the mosquito season. And Dixie Dave Minar. All that and more coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across this great state of Michigan, including WZTK in Alpena. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination. And believe me, a lot of people looking at Saginaw Bay for springtime walleye fishing right now and looking at the Linwood Beach Marina. I recommend you check them out. Great facilities, great people, great service. If you need help in getting your boat into the water this spring, or if you want to launch your boat, Linwood Beach Marina has some wonderful facilities. Charlie, go ahead. Their website, linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Okay, so May is Stroke Awareness Month. Why is that of interest? Well, I tell you what, it's of a big interest to me these days because last fall, I had a stroke. October 28th, I had a stroke. Did not see it coming. It was a real stroke. It wasn't a mini stroke. It was a real stroke. And it was a big enough event that it has me looking back on it and saying, okay, why did it happen? How did it happen? And why am I still here? And why am I showing no signs of it? I can't tell you why I'm still here, except the fact that God wasn't ready for me yet. It did take me by surprise. I was walking out to the mailbox, and I live in town, and the mailbox is about a 20-yard walk. Noontime, walk out to get the mail, midday, turn around, walk back to the house. I take 2 steps, and I feel like the right side of my brain collapsed. Now, the timing on this was interesting. It just happened to happen while I was in town. I wasn't bear hunting in the middle of the UP like I was a few weeks before. I wasn't out on Saginaw Bay with a crew of anglers like I had been a few weeks before. I wasn't on I-75 driving back and forth like I had been many times just a few days earlier. going down to see my daughter, who was getting ready to have her first baby. I didn't know what happened. Like I said, I felt like my brain collapsed, the right side. My vision immediately got screwed up. My balance was off, but I made it into the house. I make it into the back room. I sit down. Something's wrong. My wife, Denise, says, "What is it? What's wrong?" I said, "I don't know." She looked at me and she said, "I'm calling the cavalry. I'm calling 911. And in that instance, I said, "Go ahead," because I didn't know what it was. Stroke was not on my radar, but it is now. So the reason we're talking about this is because this is Stroke Awareness Month. Dr. Brian McFalda is a neurologist at my Michigan hospital in Midland. That's where I went. I didn't see the doc. He was not one of the doctors who saved me. But I appreciate the fact that he's willing to talk about strokes and getting awareness out there. Doctor, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Mike.
Let's set the stage here a little bit. You are an outdoor enthusiast yourself, right?
I am. I was born and raised in northern Michigan in a little town called Rogers City. Grew up with grandparents that kind of taught me how to shoot and hunt and fish, and the passion stuck and has taken off since there.
And in fact, you're still, when you're not working to help people, save people, you're still involved in the outdoors. You got a camp in the UP, I think.
I do. I moved to the Midland area in 2019. My wife grew up in the area and has family still in the area. We lived in Marquette in the Upper Peninsula for about 10 years, and I was very blessed to acquire a piece of property down by Rapid River.
Rapid
not
River.
Too far from Rapid River Knife.
That
so
sounds
just
right
a stone's
there.
throw away from there.
All right, so Doc, listen, we've established you're an outdoor enthusiast, you're a hunter and an angler, and I appreciate your time, so let's not waste any more of it. Stroke Awareness Month. What do you want us to be aware of? I am intimately aware of things now. Why is this important?
Well, I think it's important, just as the facts that you stated to start the conversation, Mike, is that you have to be aware of what the symptoms are, and you cannot be afraid to call for help. Stroke can happen to anyone. There certainly are risk factors for it, but even in people that are seemingly healthy, it can happen, and it can happen at any age. And so it's really important that people know the risk factors for stroke, know how to identify stroke, and when there's concern for stroke, like you said, call the cavalry, call 911 so people can get you to the specialist that can care for you, and hopefully get to a situation like yourself and have a very meaningful recovery, as opposed to being left with significant disability or death. And that's the thing that concerns most people about stroke, is that disability or death, and that's the importance of getting help.
Time is truly a factor when something happens, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. When we have a stroke, there's typically two types of strokes. There's an ischemic stroke, where there's typically lack of blood flow and oxygen to the brain, and then there's another type of stroke where there's actually blood that leaks into the brain. The first type is far more common. When that happens and the brain is deprived of blood and oxygen, 2 million brain cells die each minute. And so it is very important to try to reverse that as quickly as possible so that we can minimize the damage to a person and help them have a better recovery overall.
Is there a magic number on time frame? I mean, I've heard some numbers. Obviously, you want to get help as quick as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes to the awareness and getting help. Usually the gold standard for getting treatment for stroke is 3 hours, and it's traditionally been 3 hours. That's been expanded a little bit through a couple of other mechanisms. We can give other IV medications out to about 4.5 hours now, and we can maybe go out 6 to 8 hours with what's called mechanical thrombectomy, where somebody actually goes in with a catheter with almost like a corkscrew type device that pulls the blockage out. But this all takes time, and you need to get to the hospital in a timely fashion so that the clot can start. Outside of that window, unfortunately, there's very little that can be done, and you can actually do more damage by trying to do treatment outside of that window. So that first initial treatment, 3 hours and under, is the gold standard. And every trial and study shows the sooner that you get treatment, the better your recovery will be.
My symptoms, I think, were classic. I didn't know it at the time because it wasn't on my radar. But what happened to me is pretty typical of how you show signs of a stroke, wasn't it?
Yes. And those clear warning signs, which they often, in Stroke Awareness Month, we talk about in education a fast mnemonic. And the FAST is what people should be aware of. That FAST is facial droop. So anybody with a facial droop. The A stands for arm weakness. So anybody with arm weakness, particularly on one side of their body. The S is for speech, slurred speech. And then that T clearly is the 911 call. Time is of great importance, so call 911. Some people have added that to what's called BFAST, which gets some of the other symptoms that you were experiencing, the balance, and then the blurred or double vision. So we really want people to remember FAST, but BFAST is even better if people can remember that.
So it happened while I was at home. Thank you, Lord. My wife called 911. My wife Denise called 911 right away. Paramedics got there. The ambulance is there. They load me up, and as they're taking me to ER, that is when it finally got through my thick brain that, I think I'm having a stroke, because it wasn't on my radar. I had no thought that I would ever have a stroke. Doc, you've seen my records. I actually had a stroke previous and didn't know it. How common is that?
That's actually very common. And sometimes, as you just stated, people don't know. There may have been subtle symptoms where, somebody may have woke up one morning and had a stiff arm or a numb arm and just thought they slept on it wrong. But that very well could have been a small stroke.
Who's at risk?
So clearly this can happen at any age, but we do have certain risk factors. Folks that have high cholesterol, folks that have blood sugar issues, diabetes, people that have hypertension, folks that smoke, sleep apnea. These are the ones that tend to have the highest risks associated with it. And they're actually the things that we can do the most about. As we age, we may be at more risk. Certain races are at certain risk, but those aren't things that we can really change. We can't change our race. We can't change our age. So we need to work on those modifiable risk factors that we can change.
So I get into the hospital. ER team is outstanding. They go, yep, this guy's having a stroke. They ended up giving me this drug, this clot-busting drug that I'm thinking is a miracle drug. Is that what you were talking about, Doc, that's so common these days in people who are having a stroke?
Yes. Yep. The first treatment when you're within the window and there's not any risk factors or contraindications that you shouldn't be getting the medication, that's what they give. It's called a clot-busting drug. In the past, it was a medication called TPA. Now it's TNK. Really what it does is it dissolves the clots. It tries to break them up and either make them go away completely or make them be smaller to a degree that they go far downstream and they minimize the damage.
We're talking with Dr. Brian McFalda. He's at My Michigan Hospital in Midland. He's a neurologist there. The website is mymidmichigan.org, mymidmichigan.org. Doc, we got to take a break here, and I appreciate your time. Can you stick around a few more minutes?
Yes.
All right, I appreciate that. Dr. Brian McFalda is an outdoorsman. He's a hunter and an angler, but he also is a neurologist, and he deals with stroke all the time, so I appreciate him being along with me. They gave me that drug in ER, and I didn't realize it, but I actually appeared to get worse in ER before I got better. My son and my wife Denise, my son James and my wife Denise were there. I didn't realize how bad I was till at one point I looked over at them and I saw the look on their faces and I went, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Quick action, the team at My Michigan, and God's grace and your prayers, I'm convinced, are what brought me through this. I show no signs of stroke today. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends, for praying for me. Thank you for the team. Thank you to my wife, Denise. We'll take a break. More when we come back. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of hunting clothes? You can buy one good quality set, snap-on, zip-on, and outer shell of a different camo pattern. If you need big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins can help you out. If you are a saddle hunter, they can help you out as well. Check them out online at versaskins.com or go to amazon.com and do a search for VersaSkins brand. VersaSkins, just change your skin for the season you're in. Right now, we're having a conversation with Dr. Brian McFalda from McFalda, from My Michigan Hospital in Midland. May is Stroke Awareness Month. I had a stroke back in October. Doc, I was lucky. I went through a lot of tests afterwards. They actually found out that they think the stroke was caused by a hole in my heart that I've had since birth. They've since gone in, fixed that hole. Am I good to go now? Do I need to worry about strokes in the future?
Well, we've eliminated a lot of the risk factors by getting you on some medications and fixing that hole. 20% of the population, that hole doesn't close, and so those folks can be at risk factor for stroke. And so when we do go in and close it, the risk of stroke goes down significantly. Unfortunately, no matter what we do, the risk never gets to zero, but we get it as close as we can.
So what do you want people to know? You've talked about, okay, here's what we look for if you're having a stroke. Can people actually minimize, I don't want to say prevent because I know we can't prevent a stroke. How do we minimize the chances somebody's going to have a stroke?
Well, I think that goes back to looking at some of those risk factors in terms of cholesterol, sugars, blood pressure, smoking, getting together with your primary care physician and seeing if you're an individual that's at risk for a stroke. Exercise is always going to be a good thing because that helps lower cholesterol, lowers blood pressure, gets us overall in better cardiovascular health, better eating, cleaner diets. Those are all things that we can do to help prevent strokes.
Okay, I got a question for you. Every doctor I talk to says, Avery, you had to give up cigars. And I did. Now, I didn't inhale cigars, but I was very, very much addicted to them and still to this day could go out in the parking lot right now and light up a cigar. But every doc tells me no. Why is that, Doc? I'm not inhaling them.
So a couple things. I mean, so the smoking in itself can lead to increased blood pressure. For those that maybe do inhale or part of the process, it does impact our ability to carry oxygen on the blood. And lastly, the smoking process or smoking does impact the collagen, which is in the vessels. And so think of a sock, and when the elastic kind of starts going bad on the sock, that's what happens when people smoke to the collagen in the vessels. And so the vessels kind of collapse. And so the vessels aren't better able to carry blood and nutrients to the places where we need it to go. And so when people have further narrowing because of plaques or cholesterol in their blood and they have a vessel that's collapsed, that leads to a bad situation where there may be lack of blood flow and a stroke may occur.
See, I was hoping you were going to tell. I was hoping you were going to give me an out. But
no out.
But I was lucky though. I had my stroke. I was 3 miles from the hospital. I got treatment. But I keep thinking, what if I would have been up in the UP? What if I would have been up there with Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer, in the middle of nowhere, or on the freeway or something? I mean, you can't see a stroke coming, can you?
No, they're usually sudden. The way to think of a stroke is like a brain attack, similar to a heart attack. You may be doing fine, and then it all of a sudden occurs. There may be subtle signs where people may have had transient symptoms like dizziness, or maybe some numbness or weakness that kind of came and went over days before or months before, even as a warning sign. But most people probably wouldn't think twice about that, and that's unfortunately leads to bad situations sometimes, as you were stating. And so, yeah, time is of the key, and calling 911 is the key. And if you're someplace where you don't have access that can be challenging.
You, as a neurologist, you don't just deal with strokes, though, right?
I do not. I'm a comprehensive neurologist, general neurologist. I have actually fellowship training in epilepsy, so that was my subspecialty training. But I see the full neurologic spectrum, folks with headaches, neurologic diseases like multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's, and stroke is a big part of that. I was the stroke director at the health system in UP, and originally came here as the system stroke director when I came here in 2019.
Well, Dr. Brian McFalda, I appreciate you, taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're going to go see patients now, but the fact that you gave me a few minutes to talk about stroke during this May Stroke Awareness Month, I do appreciate it. And if it can help somebody else in the future, I think our time has been worthwhile.
I appreciate it, Mike.
Dr. Brian McFalda, appreciate your time. Good luck on the water and in the woods, and maybe sometime our paths will cross, and it's not going to be in the ER. The website for My Michigan Hospital is mymidmichigan.org. That's mymidmichigan.org. Dr. Brian McFalda is a neurologist there. I did not see him for my original stroke, but the team there at the Mid-Michigan Hospital, I got nothing but great things to say. Again, my wife called, I call it the cavalry. She called 911. In right away. The ER team there was great. The after ER team did wonderful. And the fact that God was not ready for me and you, my friends, were praying for me, I cannot thank you enough. We'll take a break. When we come back, Kerry Heckman from the Michigan DNR. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on two stations, WKYO, WIDL, that's 1360 AM, 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS, 1320 AM, and north of the bridge in Escanaba, WCHT, 600 AM, 93.5 FM. You'll remember a few weeks ago, we had a massive ice storm across the northern part of the Lower Peninsula. I don't live in that part of the state. I did not see it firsthand. But back when that was happening, the more people I talked to, the more in awe I was of the devastation that storm caused. That Mother Nature is just an awesome, awesome force. And there were people, friends I talked to who didn't have power for a month. See, I can't even imagine that. But it's not just, people's residences or their northern getaways, but it's state parks, it's boat launches. I mean, the devastation did not, it was across the board. Kerry Heckman is with the Unified Command Team. That's all divisions of the DNR working on the ice storm response. And she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk about that. Kerry, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good. What does it look like now? I mean, this thing is far from cleaned up, right?
It is, and it'll be quite a long time before things look like they used to. And in fact, I think people can expect that things in this area do not look the same and will not for quite a long time. There's, as you said, devastation is probably the best way to describe it.
How does that impact the people who live in that area and the people who want to recreate in that part of the state?
It's a significant impact. So on the state forest, for example, the storm impacted about 920,000 acres of state forest land. That's nearly a quarter of our state forest system in Michigan. And about 3,400 state forest roads. A lot of people use those for ORV access, for access to the forest for mushroom picking, for turkey hunting, for trout fishing, and they were all 3,400 acres. That's the distance from Mackinac City to Miami and back of state forest, miles of state forest road impacted, and a lot of that's impassable. So we're working hard to clean that up now. But aside from the forest, as you mentioned, 19 state parks were impacted, over 50 state forest campgrounds, over 150 boating access sites, and miles of trails.
So are a lot of these facilities, as you and I are talking right now, still closed at this point?
There are some. So we still have 8 state parks that are closed. We have 6 that are partially open. So some of the campground areas may be open, but other parts of the park may be closed. And we do have 5 that are open back up. As far as the trails, we have 16% of our trails are open within that impact area, but a significant number are still closed due to downed trees and limbs.
Who's doing this cleanup? Is it DNR crews, or are you bringing in, other outside crews to help out?
Sure. So mostly DNR crews right now. We are working with some of our trail partners on some of our ORV and snowmobile clubs. We have agreements already in place with them for doing some trail maintenance. So we're able to work with them on that. And we have a lot of people that have volunteered to assist, and we're thrilled with the response we've had on volunteering. Some of that, though, we have to wait until we get to a point where it's safe for people to volunteer. And because some of the work that has to be done needs to be done with large equipment and specialized equipment, because we're talking about trees, down over trails or hanging above trails. And so it's not safe for people to be out there right now. And so that's something that we're working to get to the point where we can take advantage of all those people that want to help us out.
With widespread devastation, how do you prioritize what happens first?
That's a great question. So especially as it relates to the state forest roads, for example, some of our highest priorities were getting access to lakes where we are doing fish stocking. We wanted to make sure that we could still get those lakes stocked this year. So that was one of our priorities for clearing roads and access to that. Also clearing access to areas where we had planned already to plant trees in the state forest. We wanted to make sure that all the seedlings that we had here ready to go, we could get them in the ground. So that was a priority. We're also looking at making sure we have cleared access to areas that are prone to wildfire, because we need to make sure that we get access back into those areas so that we don't have to take the time to cut our way back to a wildfire. For example, we're getting just into wildfire season right now. And then for the parks, of course, our biggest priority is to make sure that we can get the campers into their campsites when their reservations are. And so every park is opening on time when it was planned to, except for 3 that won't be open until May 15th, and that's Clear Lake, Petoskey, and Otsego Lake State Park.
Perfect. Kerry, I appreciate that update. Like you say, it's going to be a long time, and parts of the northern part of our state are never going to look like they did before, but we appreciate the fact that you're working on this. All the crews are as well. The website, michigan.gov/DNR Storm Response, michigan.gov/DNR Storm Response. Kerry, appreciate your time. Good luck, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, going to change topics a little bit. Greg McClinchey from the Great Lakes Fisheries Commission talking about the fact that the sea lamprey program is back. How does that work? And then Justin Tomei from MUCC on what are these proposed bills to restructure DNR fees, and how's that going to affect our licenses?
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan. And as always, I do think the best way to listen to this show, if you can, is on your local radio station. This is a radio show, Outdoor Magazine Radio. And if you can, please listen on your local AM or FM station. If you can't, if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, or if you live in some part of our state where the local radio station doesn't carry all 3 hours, well, you can pick up the rest of the show as a podcast. Yep, I got a podcast just like everybody else has got a podcast. You can hear the podcast version of the radio show on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's also on my Facebook page. It's on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, now called X, LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, yada, yada, yada. You know the whole gamut. I also put it up on YouTube. So, you know, wherever you can hear the show, I do appreciate it. I do like podcasting, though. And each month I do podcast for three of my advertising partners, including Killer Food Plots, Angler Quest Pontoons, and Offshore Tackle. And in fact, when we're done in the studio today, I will record this month's Offshore Tackle podcast with the winner of the recent Michigan Walleye Tour down on Lake Erie. So keep an ear out for that. Regardless, though, of how you are hearing my voice, when you are hearing my voice, I do certainly appreciate it. I would not have been able to do this for more than 40 years as I have without your support, and I thank you very, very much for that. In the top of the second hour here, I want to take a look at something that is it's a big deal here in our state of Michigan, and this is the war on sea lampreys. If you've ever seen one of these things, they're like this prehistoric, gruesome, evil thing, if you can put a term like that on a critter. And there was concern here that we would lose our Great Lakes lamprey program, but it has been reinstated. Greg McClinchey is with the Great Lakes Fisheries Commission, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk about this and more. Greg, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me today.
Well, pleasure's mine, Greg. Tell me about the Great Lakes Fisheries Commission. What is it? What do you folks do?
Yeah, the Great Lakes Fishery Commission is a treaty organization that was created between Canada and the United States back in the 1950s. And it was created with a very specific mission in mind, and that is to address the crisis that was hitting the Great Lakes at the time. The Great Lakes broadly, I mean, as we all know, all of us who grew up on the lakes and live on the lakes, we know how absolutely vital they are to our local economy and to our mental and physical well-being. They shape our communities, they drive the economy, and they are an ecological treasure trove like no other. But back in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, we weren't managing those resources like we needed to, and unfortunately it led to a massive crisis in the lakes. Fish stocks were collapsing. There was poor regulation, misinformed, kind of uncoordinated regulation, and it began to show. We saw fish populations that started to decline, and I don't mean just to go down a little bit, but to plummet, to go down dramatically in very short order. And things were just a mess. And after 2 unsuccessful attempts, there was a treaty that was struck. That's the one we work under now. It created the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, and we were given a mandate to do a few really important things. One, to control the invasive sea lamprey, and you kind of set the stage there. They are just the worst critters you'll ever come across. They had invaded the lakes, about a century or a little bit less than a century before then, and were just ravaging populations. They breed prolifically, they eat endlessly, and we were seeing that. We were seeing fish populations crash. There was no science. We didn't understand what was happening in the freshwater lakes. We didn't understand why things were happening, so it made it nearly impossible to come up with good regulation. We used to give out fishing licenses based on how many people wanted to go fishing as opposed to how many fish there were in the water. And as silly as that might seem to us today, it was what was being done. Political science was ruling the day, and we didn't understand that. And then the third thing that we were tasked to do is coordinating across state borders, across the state and the provincial border into Canada, the federal boundaries, and to make sure that regulators, or to help regulators to come to decisions that benefited them, yes, benefited their piece and their jurisdiction of the lakeshore, but also was for the betterment of the basin broadly. And it's taken a long time to get those systems up and running and to build those consensus-based voluntary partnerships that have been so crucial, but there's been a lot of success. So that's really at the core of it. That's what the Great Lakes Fishery Commission was created to do, and that's what we've spent the last 70 years working on with the help of a lot of partners and the public and private groups and governments at all levels.
And there was real concern here a couple of months ago that we were going to lose this entire sea lamprey program, cuts at the federal level. We got word that it's all been reinstated. Can you walk me through that process, Greg? You must have breathed a big sigh of relief when that happened.
Yeah, we're all a little bit more relaxed these days, although there's still things we have to, one of the things about working in the Great Lakes and in this particular environment is you can never let your guard down. You always have to be prepared for new challenges that pop up. As we sometimes say, we rush toward the light at the end of the tunnel and just hope that it isn't a train. So what happened is back in February 14th, we received word. So I mentioned earlier that the Fishery Commission itself is a treaty organization. But we do work with partners to execute some of our programming. In fact, we work with partners to execute almost all of our programming. So on February 14th, we received word that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, for example, which we have a contract with them. We pay them to provide certain lamprey control services in the United States. And we got word that they had to do three things which were troubling for our program success. In no particular order, they were told they needed to fire anybody that was considered probationary. They needed to put an end to federal travel, and they needed to let go folks who they weren't able to hire seasonal workers. So elimination of the probationary employees, no new hires of any seasonal employees, and the federal travel ban. Now that presented a challenge to us for a number of reasons. So first off, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has somewhere in the neighborhood of about 85 people who work on the contract they have with us. If you take 12, which is what it ended up being, away from that of probationary employees, that punches a major hole into a program that's very lean, right? There's not a lot of fat in our programming. We're a very small, but we'd like to think mighty group. And that was problem number one. Problem number two is when we hire seasonal employees, or the Fish and Wildlife Service on our behalf hires seasonal employees as a way of keeping costs down, right? If we don't need them during the off season, we power up during our control season, which is April to October-ish, depending on lots of factors like weather and so on. We weren't able to hire those folks. And then the travel ban caused some consternation because the Fishery Commission is responsible for eliminating about 8 or 9 million sea lamprey per year. And unless we could convince those lamprey to come to the office, it was going to be really tough to get them if we couldn't send our crews out to get them. So, now I do want to stress these things all came down and it was obviously a huge problem, but I don't think, in fact, I know it was not a directive that was targeted at the lamprey program, right? Nobody woke up that morning and said, I'm going to start cheering for the lamprey. Nobody said, I want to put the boots to the Great Lakes. This was a situation where policy decisions made for other reasons, and I always say we don't do partisan politics at the Commission. We can speak to outcomes, and the outcome of those decisions had an unintended consequence on the Fishery Commission and our programming. So what happened then is obviously we were hit with these things. We began working with our congressional partners, members of Congress and so on, that we are blessed with tremendous support in all Great Lakes states, but certainly there's no place that has greater support than in Michigan. And we spoke with the congressional members, and they immediately got involved. They immediately began making calls, explaining what the consequences of these actions would be. And within a few weeks, within about 6 weeks or so, those decisions began to be reversed. So at this moment, I can report that we are looking at a situation where the seasonal employees have been hired. They're full-time seasonal. Now, our seasonal employees, they have to be licensed. They have to be certified in what they're doing. It's a very technical business, sea lamprey control. But we certainly did lose a lot of expertise. Some folks who would normally come back to us year after year after year decided not to. So that does take a toll on the program, but we got the number of seasonal employees that we needed to do the job.
Hang tight, Greg. Listen, I've got to interrupt you here because we've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Greg McClinchey from the Great Lakes Fisheries Commission, their website, glfc.org. After the break, I want to talk to Greg. He talked about the control season, 8 million lampreys. Well, how do they get rid of them? You're going to see examples of their crews out there on the rivers. We'll talk about that and more with Greg McClinchey of the Great Lakes Fisheries Commission, glfc.org. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC, that's 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on WKNW, 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by... Rapid River Knife Works, right? You know that sound. That's the sound of my Rapid River knife coming out of my pocket and locking back open. I carry this knife with me, or one very similar to it, every day. I think a good knife is a great gift, especially this time of year, right? How about for dads and grads? I hate to use that cliche, but Father's Day, an excellent gift for Father's Day, an outstanding gift for the graduate in your life. Rapid River knives are handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and they are guaranteed for life. If you check out the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com, and use the promo code Avery15, you can get 15% off your order, or go to the showroom on US 2, just east of Rapid River. Use that same promo code. You can get 15% off the knife of your choice. And here's something we were thinking about this morning. What if we were to do a limited edition run of Rapid River knives using the Mike Avery Outdoors logo, and then we take a percentage of the proceeds from that and donate it to some outdoor-related charity? Charlie? Got your attention, didn't it, Charlie? I think that's a win-win. I suspect that is going to happen. Keep an ear out for that. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com. Right now, though, we're talking with Greg McClinchey. He is with the Great Lakes Fishery Commission. They are the folks who are charged with, in part, controlling the sea lamprey here on the Great Lakes. The funding has been apparently restored. They're breathing a little sigh of relief there. Greg, let's talk about this program and how it works. Earlier in the first segment, you talked about the control season. We are in that season now, aren't we?
We are, yes.
How does that work?
Yeah, so between April and October of each year, again, give or take based on weather, we would have crews that would operate on both sides of the Canada-U.S. border that would cover the basin. We have a number of rivers that are identified as lamprey-producing rivers. Now, why that's important is a lamprey is an ancient fish, right? It's an ancient fish. Every lamprey will eat about 40 pounds of fish once they've matured, and each female will have about 100,000 eggs.
Jeez.
So just to put that into perspective, 250,000 lamprey larvae. If they get away on us, they would in the end produce about 11 billion eggs. Right, just that 250,000 larvae, assuming half of them are male and half of them are female. So this problem grows really bad, really fast. And during COVID, right, we've been successful as an organization because we're border blind. Right, so if you look really carefully at a lamprey, you'll find that they don't have pockets and therefore don't carry passports. They don't care what side of the border they're in. They don't care what state they're in. They just want to eat and eventually have babies. So during COVID, when we had the borders closed, we had social distancing requirements, we couldn't put people in trucks together and all those kinds of things. We had to relax the control season. We had to relax the amount of sea lamprey control we're doing. And in the final analysis, we now know that caused lamprey populations in certain areas to increase by 300%. and it cost the economies of the basin about $2 billion. So this is a problem that gets really bad really fast if we don't stay involved. So what lamprey control is lamprey don't have a single year life cycle, and that means we can treat various rivers on a multi-year cycle. So as long as we treat a given river every 2 or every 3 years or whatever, then the lamprey in that river don't move out into the lake to feed. They live their larval years in the river, then they change into the parasite, that they are, and then they move out into the river to feed. They spend time out there feeding and eventually move their way back into the rivers to spawn. Now, we can get them in the rivers. We have a lamprey-specific compound that we can place in the water. It's very technical. It has to happen at specific concentrations and flow rates and pH levels and all that stuff. And our crews put the stuff in the water. They monitor. It can be a 2 or even a 3-day process, depending on the size of the treatment, the size of the river, and it will kill the lamprey larvae in the river. And that prevents them from ever moving into the lakes and causing their harm. So it's an important program. It's a program that is time sensitive and takes a huge amount of skill. We have wonderful crews. The people that do our field work are very, very good, very dedicated to what they do, and the results speak for themselves.
I've been surprised in the past, before I learned much about this, at the size of the rivers that you'll treat. Now, I mean, I've seen you treat very small streams in the Upper Peninsula. I've seen you treat rivers in mid-Michigan all the way to the central part of the state. How do you determine what rivers get treated?
Basically, we do what's called larval assessment. So we have to go out into a river. Our people will go out into a river and begin to assess how many sea lamprey are in that river. So there's all sorts of techniques we can use. For example, they have, for lack of a better phrase, and you can tell I'm not the person that goes out and does it, but they basically have 2 spoons, 2 long-handled big spoons. And they'll one will have a mild electric charge, and the other is just a scoop. And you can actually go through and you stun an area of the water, and you can see how many lamprey float to the surface. You can also do lake trout wounding rates. So as we pull in lake trout, we have ways of diverting lake trout and certainly angler feedback and so on. A lamprey will generate a round scar on a fish. So a lamprey has a round sucker mouth with about 150 teeth. They'll attach to the side of the fish, and their tongue comes out and pokes a hole, and they basically drink out the juice of the fish.
It's
like
gruesome.
The world's
it's
worst
gruesome,
milkshake.
isn't it?
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And it would be horrible for the fish. Like, you think about it, you've got this big thing on the side of you, about 18 inches long, and it's literally drinking you out over the course of days and so on. So if they happen to drop off, and anglers, people who are anglers will, fortunately not as much as they once did, or not as often as they once did, but they can pull a fish out, and sometimes if there's a lamprey attached, they'll drop back in the water, or on rare occasions you get them into a boat. But ultimately you will see the sucker marks on the side of fish, and you can tell that there's been a feeding attempt there.
So, but if you take that same lamprey, when I was young and dumb, I did this. I took a lamprey off a fish, and I actually tried to stick it to my hand, and they're not interested at us at all. They only need a cold-blooded critter, right?
Yeah, no, fortunately, they only like a cold meal. So they generally won't attach to a human. As you said, if you put one on your hand, they have a sucking instinct, so they will grab onto your hand. They typically don't like us, as you say, because we're cold-blooded, but also because they live in the very cold water down at the bottom of the lakes where it's dark. They also hunt largely by nose. And if you don't smell like a fish, you're probably in a pretty good place. So, beachgoers and kayakers and people that are just enjoying the lakes don't really have anything to worry about that way. But certainly we all need to be worried about the absolute devastation that this species can cause if we don't control it. The invasive sea lamprey, it's estimated that they could eliminate fish stocks in the Great Lakes in 3 to 5 years if they were left completely unfettered to do their thing.
Is it just the soft skin? I'm going to use the term skin. I know there's scales. Like a lake trout would be easier to attach to than, say, a walleye, I would think. Would they attach to walleye too?
Yeah, basically, sea lamprey kind of like the fish that we do, right? And they're very opportunistic. They're a very lazy fish. So they kind of hang out at the bottom. And if something goes by that smells good, they're not particularly discerning. They'll latch on. But they do tend to feed at the top, right? They want, the nice, big sports fish, the species that we most often like to go after, but they're not especially discerning when it comes to their menu choices. So no matter what goes by, they will certainly do what they can to feed on that. They're very opportunistic, and they're not generally into doing a lot of work for their dinner.
If I remember correctly, haven't you determined that the St. Mary's River is actually the number one producer, and that's where a lot of your efforts have to go to?
Yep, absolutely. And there's certainly, but so I mentioned earlier, we use lampricide in our treatments. This compound that lamprey as an ancient fish have not developed the ability to metabolize. It was a remarkable thing that was created was discovered, I guess, back in the 50s. So if you have a jar with a lake trout or whatever in it and a lamprey, and you put at the right concentrations, you put the lampricide in, it will kill the lamprey and not hurt the lake trout. But we also use other things as well. So there are areas that maybe aren't suitable for treatment with lampricide, or we have another thing called balicide, which is the granular form of lampricide for use in high-flowing waters. But we also have supplemental control barriers. We have, through the use of electric barriers or bubble barriers. We really use the full gamut because you're right. Some of these streams that we're treating are really either really fast moving or they're kind of small and back in where we can't get to them so easily. So there's a lot of careful planning and skill involved with the execution of this program because, as I said earlier, if we were to just miss one or two or three treatments. Like if I look at our treatment schedule, which is on our website for anyone who wants to see it, where we'll be and when we'll be there, within some variation, right? Again, weather changes that. But if I look at that treatment schedule and were to pick out 3 or 4 of our smaller treatments, you're talking about, and miss those treatments, you're talking about 250, 300,000 larvae that would be missed in these smaller rivers. And that's where I got the number earlier. If you take 250,000, multiply it by 100,000, or half it, and then multiply it by 100,000, you're looking at 11,200,000,000 eggs, which is the impact that this species can have if we don't have the successful interventions.
Well, I'm so glad the funding has been restored, and we don't have time to talk about this. It's a future conversation, Greg McClinchey. But real quickly, are you folks also working with the Asian carp too? Is that under your jurisdiction?
Yeah, so let me just back up, Brett. I'll do this really quick. So the funding was never the question, right? Congressional funding was never reduced, but what was at risk or what was changed is the personnel issue. So it became access to personnel. On the invasive carp, yes, we have a grass carp program in Lake Erie that we work on to control grass carp there. We're also working with groups like the Army Corps and others to keep other invasive carp from coming up the Mississippi River. So we really concern ourselves very much with the habitat and the preservation of fish stocks of common concern, and we'll work with partners to make sure, or at least we hope to make sure that will never happen. Greg
McClinchey of the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, you guys have your hands full. I'm glad you're out there. I'm glad you're doing the job. Appreciate your time, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you very much.
The website for the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, by the way, is glfc.org, glfc.org. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Justin Tomei of MUCC talking about proposed legislation to increase our hunting and fishing fees and fund the DNR. Oh, Charlie, that one took me by surprise. I don't know why. It's the same length break, right? They're always the same length. Sometimes anyway. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine radio show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including 98.5 WUPS in Houghton Lake. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. And north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM. 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots. It is that time of year. It's time to put in your food plots, right? Food plots are a big deal across the state, and I like to say, why not work with a Michigan-based, family-owned company? I recommend Killer Food Plots. Their website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. And keep an ear out for the Killer Food Plots podcast as well. You can hear that also at killerfoodplots.com. All right, there's a lot of talk in Michigan right now of fear, and I'll use the word fear, from folks of thinking, boy, our hunting and fishing licenses are going to go up. Well, you know what? They probably are going to go up. I have a different perspective on this than a lot of people, and I'll keep that perspective out of this discussion for now, because we have Justin Tomei of MUCC. He is a lobbyist. He is a policy guy working on our behalf in Lansing, keeping an eye on the legislature and beyond. And Justin, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good. Help me figure some things out here. Last week, I had Ed Blissick of the Great Lakes Salmon Initiative on the show talking about some legislation they were working on behind the scenes. I don't think that's come to fruition yet. And then in the meantime, I hear about some legislation that has dropped that would restructure the funding for the DNR, and as a result, our hunting and fishing licenses would likely go up. You're the man, Justin. What can you tell me?
Well, I'll say Ed's first. There is a House version that is coming that tackles fishing only. I don't have a lot of details on it, so I don't want to speak on it as any authority. Other than it is coming, we will get to see it in the coming weeks.
And that is fishing only. And as a side note, part of that would be something in there that would allow Great Lakes trolling anglers to run more rods, which is close to my heart, but we'll see what happens there.
Yep, that is my understanding as well. So we'll get to see that in a few weeks when that bill does drop.
Okay.
But last week, Senators Cherry and Bumstead dropped Senate Bill 276 and 277, which is kind of their version of how they view a license fee increase should look. And I'll preface everything with this is a separate proposal than what the DNR proposed at the end of last year and what the governor proposed in her budget earlier this year. They themselves describe it as kind of a passion project from two Michigan hunters. But yeah, it does hunting and fishing. It is and trapping. It is a comprehensive package that was released last week.
Okay, so you say two different bills. Why is it two different bills?
I don't want to speak for them why they thought that this package would be better than the one that was proposed at the end of last year. But they sat down and they took a look at it, and they wanted to figure out a way in their minds to solve the DNR's funding issues, putting lesser of a burden on the hunters than the proposals at the end of 2024, and kind of creating some triggers and backfills for certain funds that the DNR is currently missing out on that they really shouldn't be missing out on.
Okay, I need to clarify because I may have misunderstood here. When you said two different bills, you don't mean that Cherry and Bumstead have two different bills. There's one bill that is Cherry Bumstead that is different from the previous. Okay, I got you now.
Yes,
I got
one bill from the pair of the senators.
Okay, so what is in this?
So obviously, a lot of the licenses go up. I will say they go. We probably don't need to go line by line through the whole thing. MUCC does have a summary on our website already, so you can see that at mucc.org. But licenses do go up. They go up less than the 2024 version. There is additional funding for hunter safety and fishing and hunting recruitment programs for the Michigan Wildlife Council and for Michigan Hunters Feeding Michigan, formerly Sportsmen Against Hunger. So there's additional funding in there for those things. There's some cold water habitat and production money that is restricted and set aside in this bill. But the real big one and why they're able to lessen the increases relative to the proposals at the end of 2024 is because they create a trigger to reimburse the department for the senior discount, which is retained in the legislation, some newly created discounts for youth hunters, which is added to the legislation, and some other fees that the department loses out on, like commission to vendors, to licensed vendors. All of those things get backfilled to the department annually, and so the license fee increases are not as high or as dramatic as the 2024 version.
I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but what does create a trigger mean?
So I'm not an accounting expert. My understanding is they kind of borrowed some language from how some school aid is funded, and so it actually creates a similar program where this money is like automatically allocated and not necessarily the legislature doesn't have to appropriate these backfill funds every single year.
Sounds like political voodoo.
Sometimes accounting can be shell games. If you hear somebody else that understands this stuff better than me, it makes sense a little more. But basically, it's creating like a do no harm to the department. The department loses millions of dollars a year in license fee discounts that aren't reimbursed and are supposed to be reimbursed. This ensures that they recoup those funds.
Justin, I know you can stick around for the next segment. There's a lot of things I want to follow up with on you, because I also want to talk about this whole concept. Do our hunting and fishing fees stay with our hunting and fishing efforts, or do they get stolen and used somewhere else? But hang tight on your comments. We'll talk about that after the break. We're talking with Justin Tomei of MUCC. MUCC.org is the website, MUCC.org. More coming up with Justin after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Holland on WHTC. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. You can hear us in Manistee, WMLQ 97.7 FM. And you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Security Credit Union continues to expand the list of their branches across the state. And they are also a very big, I don't want to say sponsor, a partner with me and MUCC in the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing coming up Friday, July 25th at the West Branch Country Club. Security Credit Union's foundation has stepped up and made a very big contribution to help us fund MUCC's youth camp. If you would like to get involved in the outing, the website is mucc.org/golf. And if you sign up for that, you will see me there, and you will see Justin Tomei of MUCC there, because the guy's a scratch golfer. I mean, you put a golf club in his hand and you look out, because the guy he's gonna shoot your eyes out with it. Right?
No. Well, no. Maybe after hole 5. I find my swing after hole 5 and I break all the rust off my back.
I'm looking forward to that, Justin. But in the meantime, there's a lot of work to be done. And one of the questions people always ask me is, well, we pay all these hunting and fishing dollars, and I wouldn't mind paying more for my license if I could be guaranteed it would stay in the hunting and fishing realm. There's a lot of people, Justin, who are concerned that our license fees end up getting stolen and put into the general fund. Is that the case?
No, it's not. It's a pretty big general misconception, both that side of it, but also that the DNR that our tax dollars pay for the DNR, which is also mostly not true usually. They do get some general fund investment, which is tax dollars, but limited amounts and usually one-time funding. License fees go to conservation. They go to fund the department. Some of the license fees do get broke off and go to fund the law enforcement division or marketing and outreach, but it stays within the division. They're called restricted funds. And so when you buy a license, that money is going to the DNR.
So how long has it been since the DNR had an license increase?
2014, I think the last one was passed, or maybe it was passed in 2013, started in 2014, but it's been 10 years.
Has MUCC taken a position on this, on whether a license fee increase is valid and justified?
I don't want to sit here and say this is the only answer and this is the answer that we have to support. MUCC supports increased funding for the department through some long-term permanent mechanism. This bill has a CPI adjustment. This would meet that qualification. So is this a remedy to the department's problems? Yes. Is it the remedy that we have to do? Maybe not. But currently, it is the only game in town. I know that the other fishing-only one is coming soon. That one we're going to have separate discussions on. So we support the idea and concept. We recognize the need. We understand the need to do something. And right now, this is the only proposal. So, we're talking about it on its merits. And I would argue that, it would solve a lot of the DNR's funding issues kind of on a much more long-term basis than we've historically tackled.
Well, you talk about this fishing only bill that's coming up, and I've been talking to those folks quite extensively, and their concern is they don't want to be tied in to anything hunting related because they see a PR problem with the DNR in that most people tend to like the fisheries side of things and agree they're doing a pretty good job, where you get to the wildlife side of things, the hunting side of things, and there's a lot of mistrust there. So they don't want to be tied into that at all.
I get the sentiment, and I don't want to speak specifically about their proposal because nobody's seen it yet.
Right.
But philosophically, I will say solving only one half of the problem is likely to create more problems or as many problems as it solves.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's pretty safe to say that MUCC feels we need a comprehensive package. We need a comprehensive solution. Breaking it down piecemeal, in my opinion, is not the right way to do it. We should do it, buy once, cry once. Do it right one time, rip the Band-Aid off, let's fix this, and then not have to do this every 10 years again.
So what is your sense? Something is going to happen. How similar will it be to this Cherry Bumstead proposal than what we're seeing right now?
Honestly, from what I know about their legislation, the Cherry Bumstead one is not terribly dissimilar. I think there's actually a lot of common ground there. So in terms of combining or merging or using ideas from one or another on the fishing side of things, I don't think that that's going to be a terribly difficult pull. In terms of are our license fees going up this year? Maybe. I mean, it's still, I would say, an uphill battle if this was to get passed. There's a decent chance that we use all of these different packages. We talk about the different funding mechanisms they provide. We talk about other funding mechanisms that maybe aren't out there yet, and maybe we find some other way to do it. Again, we're not married to a license fee proposal. It is just the proposal that's on the table.
But real quick, because we're running out of time, they're not going to go up this year because we're locked in stone for this year, right?
Yeah, they won't go up this year. And honestly, if you pass the license bills today, it may not even go into effect until the 27 license.
Yeah,
so
I got you. Justin Tomei of MUCC, always appreciate your insight. The website for MUCC is mucc.org. Please sign up to become an individual member. There is strength in numbers. And thank you, of course, once again to the folks at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible and for really stepping up and becoming a major sponsor of the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing to benefit MUCC's youth camp. If you want to sign up for that, mucc.org/golf. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, the newest member of the Michigan Outdoor Hall of Fame, Al Stewart, talking about springtime turkey hunting and more right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to our number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. Right here in the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across this great state of Michigan. How are you? How are things in your world? Are they going well? Are you getting a chance to get out and enjoy this springtime? Looking at the weather forecast, looks like it's going to start to get a little better. Boy, we've had a lot of northeast winds. I was just talking with Mr. AnglerQuest, Brad Dupuis, during the break at the top of the hour, and we were bemoaning the fact we've had so many northeast winds. But hopefully this change in the weather that's coming is going to swing things around. Maybe we can get some southwest winds. Maybe we can get a little more seasonable weather. But what is seasonable anyway, right? Mother Nature does what Mother Nature wants. But I've said before, I think that's part of the appeal of this outdoor lifestyle. You know, for many of us now, in our day-to-day worlds, we get so used to instant gratification, instant feedback. You know, you click a button, a screen comes to life. You move a mouse and things happen, and it's like, things do what we want them to do. But man, you get out in the woods or on the water and start dealing with critters and weather and stuff, and that's no guarantee, right? We deal with what Mother Nature gives us. We deal with what the turkeys want us to do. We deal with what the walleye want us. You know, we don't have control, and I love that. Actually, I love that a lot. My guest this hour is a guy who has been around the outdoor scene here in Michigan and beyond for many, many years. I mean, like 50 years or so. I don't know how. The guy's only 45 years old. I don't know how he's been in the outdoor scene for 50 years. His name is Stewart. He was a wildlife biologist with the DNR for many, many years, and he was an upland game bird specialist, and he became known across the country in that position. But he's also a hardcore hunter, hardcore turkey hunter, and here's something very, very cool. He has just recently been inducted into the Michigan Outdoor Hall of Fame. He, along with Richard P. Smith, another frequent guest here on the show that we talked with a couple of weeks ago, were the two inductees into the Michigan Outdoor Hall of Fame. I tell you what, I think that is the ultimate honor for any Michigan outdoorsman or outdoor woman to be given that honor. And Al has had many of them, believe me, many of them across the country over the years. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Al, welcome. How are you?
I'm great, Mike. Thanks for all those kind words. Yeah. It's the Hall of Fame thing was just a huge surprise, and you know, as they say, I'm honored, and I really am. You know, to be spoken in the same sentence as some of the other inductees, like Fred Bear and Tom Hugler and Howard Tanner. You know, I mean, Steve Ranella. I mean, it's just. Wow.
Well, I mean, you're there. I mean, you got a proven track record. I mean, everybody. I mean, you're known across the country, and I think it's cool that you had so many years with the Michigan DNR, and now you find yourself continuing this celebration of the outdoors in a different position. Tell me about the Nimrod Education Center there at Hillsdale.
Yeah. So. You know, I retired from the Michigan DNR, like you said. After
you didn't do a very good job of retirement either, did you?
No, I failed at retirement. and Hillsdale College, you know, kind of contacted me, and they had a very new program starting up called the Nimrod Education Center. And my position there, my mission is to help inform the public about the contributions that hunters, anglers, and shooters make to conservation. Who really pays for conservation? And we all know it's that group of people. Nobody else really does it all. You know, that group puts their money where their mouth is, and through buying hunting licenses and Pittman Robinson funds, you know, it's a model for wildlife conservation, fisheries management that's unseen around the world. And every day we get to you know, take advantage of that. And most people don't know, you know, how this all works. So that's one of the jobs I have there at Hillsdale College to do this. And it's, you know, really one of the only positions of its type in the country that's associated with a place of higher learning, and that this is the sole mission.
And that's where I think it gets really interesting, because all too often in today's world, you will see universities running away from the concept of anybody talking about the shooting sports or guns or anything like that. They want nothing to do with it. But Hillsdale has done just the opposite and embraced the shooting sports and built facilities there to encourage people to get involved in the shooting sports.
Yeah, exactly. They have what's called the Halter Shooting Education Center. And students take classes there in how to shoot a shotgun, how to shoot a bow, how to shoot a rifle, a pistol, learning about conservation. And Hillsdale is one of those unique places where they take no state or federal dollars. So this is allows them to do everything merit-based and allows them to, speak the Second Amendment, which is a high priority for the college. The Constitution is a high priority for the college. And what I find really interesting is they put out a calendar every year to, supporters and friends of the college. And last year, the June photo with the June dates there, the photo was a picture of the president of the college shooting a shotgun at Ski. And so this is for the friends of the college, and this is the calendar that's attached to the refrigerator of many friends of the college. And they have to look at that picture for 30 days. So that when you talk about commitment, that's the commitment that Hillsdale College has to Second Amendment and the outdoors.
Where does this come from? I mean, I'd hate to get too philosophical here, but does this go back to the roots of how Hillsdale was founded and what they were founded to do?
Well, yeah. I mean, Second Amendment. The Constitution is pretty key, and a gentleman that was thought that this was really important. Mr. Taylor decided to help fund this concept, and he had no really association with Hillsdale College prior to that, but he looked at what their mission was and how that aligned with his ideas, and he put money toward this Nimrod Education Center. He's the president of the Nimrod Society, so it just all the namesake and everything followed forward. I will point out for a few that are chuckling in the background, about Nimrod. They may not know that Nimrod is mighty hunter before the Lord in Genesis, and that's the basis for the name of this particular program.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, because I'll be honest, in the modern world, Nimrod has taken on kind of a negative connotation, like a Nimrod of a dummy or a stupid thing, and I was kind of falling into that too. I'm like, well, why are they calling this Nimrod? So I appreciate you bringing that up, because it it goes way back to good things.
Oh no, it goes way back, and it's been a positive term until the 60s, and it's kind of again one of those funny deals where in adult humor, in writing TV type cartoons, at the end of every cartoon for Bugs Bunny, Bugs Bunny would lean over to Elmer Fudd and say, using a positive term, you're a Nimrod, and using a negative term, you're a doofus. And as things go, the meaning just shifted, which is so interesting. But that was black and white TV, and on, and baby boomers and beyond now are that's the definition. So I like to look at it at Hillsdale with Nimrod. We're in a position to mentor people about the qualities of hunting, fishing, and shooting, the shooting sport.
There was a time when TV was black and white.
Oh yeah. There were only three channels.
Oh, I remember those well. And you and I were the remote, because our dad would tell us to get up and turn the channel, right? We were the remote control.
Oh, that's right. And try to get rid of the fuzz in there by adjusting the rabbit ears on top of the TV. Oh, there was a time.
Hang tight, Al. We got to take a break. We're talking to Al Stewart of the Nimrod Center. It's a place in Hillsdale College that they are dedicated to promoting the role of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. I love that. The website for Hillsdale, by the way, is hillsdale.edu, hillsdale.edu. When we come back, we're going to switch gears and talk about hunting turkeys during the mosquito season, as I like to call it. But you know what? I've learned it is a very, very effective and productive time of year to hunt springtime turkeys here in the great state of Michigan. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. And you can hear us twice each weekend in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM 106.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let them create an outdoor getaway in your backyard as they have for me. And they also, the folks from Reader want to remind you, look, at your outdoor project, your outdoor getaway doesn't have to be a complete revamping of your backyard. It can be a smaller project, like a little bit of a landscaping, a little bit of a stone garden, a little bit of a water feature. Whatever you think you want to tweak your yard, make it the way you want, get in touch with the folks from Reader. Look, I know you can do it. You have the tools. You have the ability to do it. I'm speaking for myself here. When I was a kid growing up, I grew up working on a golf course. So I understand landscaping and moving dirt and how to make things happen. But you know what? I don't want to do that these days. I would just as soon call the guys from Reader. They'll send over a crew of 2 or 3 or 4 young, strong guys who are eager to get the job done right. And it saves me time so I can be in the woods or on the water. It's a no-brainer. Their website is readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. They've been in business for 60 years, so you know that they're doing a good job. readerlandscaping.com. So right now we're talking with Al Stewart, who is a retired DNR Wildlife Biologist. He was the upland bird specialist for many years. These days, he's at Hillsdale College at the Nimrod Education Center, designed to promote the role of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. Al, I had an interesting experience several weeks ago. I was at the MUCC convention in Gaylord, and a young guy leans across the table to me, and he says, "Hey, Al Stewart says hi." And I looked at him, and I said, "You're Al's son. He looked just like you. I knew it had to be your kid."
Yeah, that's him. He's kind of taken the conservation banner, having been exposed to it most of his life, and has, been really active in conservation programs and organizations. And he actually has his own kind of podcast or video kind of thing, I guess, on YouTube. It's called the Prince of Wildlife, and he talks about conservation and cooking foods. And he's just really big on giving back to, the conservation community. And I don't know where he got it.
Geez, I don't know either. I don't know where he got it from.
He's pretty good at it, and I'm proud of him and my other son Tom too. They're both great guys. They take after their mother,
Yeah, well, I think their mother and their father. They come from a good family, so good for you
Thank
guys.
You, sir. Thank you.
I know he's a hardcore turkey hunter too, and let's talk about this May season. You and I used to joke. Well, I used to joke with you about May being the mosquito season, and you said, "Hey, don't overlook it. It's a different bird in the month of May." And I have learned that over the years that the later you get in the season, man, things change, and these birds start to cooperate a little bit more in some cases.
Yeah, they really do, and you always call it the mosquito season, and I'm glad you did. That kind of helps keep the riffraff out of the woods too. But it really does change, and so just think for this year, people were successful. They've had good hunts, and they've had turkeys gobble. But think about the last, since the turkey season opened, count the number of beautiful spring days that you've had. Very few.
Yeah.
It's rained, it's cold, it's windy. It's like you talked about at the start off of the program. It's just garbage weather many times.
Yeah.
And usually that last week or two of April, although the turkeys have, they're gobbling, they're out there, but it usually rains and it's not great weather. But as you go further into really spring, May is that time when, you walk out into the woods and, the wildflowers are out. The morel mushrooms are like really popping. Yeah, you found a couple, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but they're about to really pop. And so, you can see all of that. The other birds are singing, the turkeys are gobbling. But the key part of this is the turkey season starts when the majority of the hens have already been bred. Okay. But what happens right now is those hens have been bred and now they're sitting on nests. They'll roost with the tom first thing in the morning, maybe a bit. But if you watch groups of hens with a tom, they're hanging around there. They're not really looking overly excited about when he gobbles, but he's still, doing his thing. And then they just slowly fade away from an area that you maybe have the opportunity to watch birds. And then he's just standing out there by himself. And so toms have to stay sexually active all the way into the middle end of June, because there may be hens that are re-nesting, so he needs to stay at the top of his game. So and he really thinks a lot of himself the further along it goes, and so he many times he gobbles more. People say, oh no, they don't gobble later in the season. Oh, they gobble really well, and the beauty of it is they're now lonely. so they're looking for any hen yelp in the woods many times. And, just like any aspect of turkey hunting, patience is what pays off. So, yeah, that's why I think, the later you go, the better. For me, I enjoy more. The other aspect of it is there's a lot more greenery out there. There's more leaves around. And when I take people who have never hunted before, movement is the number one thing you cannot do when you're turkey hunting. But later with some of the vegetation, you can move a little bit because it fits in with the greenery that's there too. There's the wind blows a fern or something, so they're not as, it's not as critical. It's still critical, but not as critical when there's no vegetation out there, in that early spring woods. It's just you and a tree and a lot of open country. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, and my grandson, Trent, my goal this year is to get him his first bird. He's a hardcore hunter, but mostly a deer hunter. He's never hunted birds before, so we're going to get him a bird this spring. And we have season ZZ, which is Southern Michigan private land, which is a very long season. I mean, it goes from the end of April right into early June, so we've got a lot of time. But when I hear you talk about these late season birds, I'm thinking, man, a mid-morning hunt in late season in May, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
That's good, but the other side of it is, that mid-morning, a lot of birds are between 10 and 2. That's when I've harvested a large percentage of my birds.
Yeah.
Because at that time, the hens have gone. So, yeah, that's a great time. Or the other is, that afternoon hunt, too. So you can pick them up after school, go out, and now you can hunt to, till the end of the day. And that has provided a lot of extra opportunity for kids in school. And then on top of it, this time of year, it's still fun to get up early, in the dark and go out and watch the world come alive. But if you're taking a student, you can go out because the sun rises a little earlier and it gets light, or it's still dark a little earlier, but it gets light a little earlier. And so I've had it where I've taken kids out and we've been back to school. We've hunted in the morning and back to school before school starts. So there's lots of options to it. And, it really, to me, and, you and I have talked about it before, there's a lot of great hunting. There's great deer hunting in Michigan. There's great duck hunting where you call the bird and, they respond to it. And to me, turkey hunting is just that mesh of the best of woodsmanship associated with turkey hunt or with deer hunting, and the best of calling and interacting with birds like duck hunting. It's all right there, and it just expands on those two parts of hunting. Plus, you do it in the spring when there isn't any other hunting opportunities, and again, you get to see you go out in the early morning, and you get to see the world come alive before your very eyes. And in the spring, everything, all the birds are singing, the frogs are making noise. There's just a lot happening.
I love it.
As you
I love it.
That go on.
Hey, before I let you go, though, I do have to bring something up here that's been bothering me, and that is, I feel like there are fewer birds here in Michigan than there was the previous several years. And I base this not just on my springtime hunting activities so far, but mostly on driving around the state. I'm just not seeing the number of birds out in fields that I have before.
Yeah, and I think your observations are correct. In my opinion, there are fewer birds now than there were 15 years ago. And it's not just my opinion. This is happening around the country in eastern wild turkey habitat. Bird numbers are down. It's not, nothing to be concerned about, but certainly, the numbers have declined a bit. And I think that's part of, when you put a new species into great habitat, the populations expand. I mean, there was a time when every year was better than the year before, but at some point, you reach that carrying capacity, it sort of flatlines out then. And then from that, you have these little peaks and valleys that occur based on, good nesting conditions or, weather aspects of that. And I think we're just there. I'm not so sure. We're on that edge of what you see is what you've got. I think this may be the stable part of our population, or where it's stabilized out. But I think this is when you see those, like I said, ups and downs. 1 year you have great numbers, another year it's down a bit. Turkeys lay a dozen eggs. They're designed for sort of boom or bust situations. When everything's really great, you can have 12 poults off one hen. But if there's something bad happens in weather conditions, she'll bring off 3 or 4. And that's what you see go through the system. And
gotcha.
In the South, they call it hunting the hatch.
Yeah.
really
Listen,
good
Al,
years.
It's almost sacrilegious to cut off the newest member of the Michigan Outdoor Hall of Fame. So I apologize for that, but I am out of time. But I see what you're saying. It's nothing to be concerned about. It's just, okay, I'll follow up on this after the break. Al, I'm going to let you go. Appreciate your time. Al Stewart, Nimrod Education Center, Hillsdale.edu, Hillsdale.edu. More coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show across our great state of Michigan on more than 30 radio stations, AM and FM affiliates, including WSGW in Saginaw. I am in the studios of WSGW right now, but for this 3 hours, this small corner of the building, I have declared it the Outdoor Magazine radio studio, and I actually have a sign behind me. If you go to my Facebook page, Mike Avery Outdoors on Facebook, and you look up the video section and you see the behind the mic segments, you will see me sitting in here in the studio behind the mic. So it's Mike behind the mic. And there's a logo, there's a graphic behind me that clearly designates this part of the building as the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. And nobody has argued that with me yet, including Charlie Rood, who is in here right with me now. Charlie doing a wonderful job as always. And you know where? Look where I'm pointing, Charlie. Look out there. See? It's a beautiful day, and there are people lining up, and they're starting to chant. They're not doing it yet, right? They'll do this once the show is over, and they know Charlie's getting ready to go home. It's like, Charlie, Charlie. I'm telling you, the people here in this part of the state, well, actually, and beyond, they love Charlie Rood because he does such a great job. And, Charlie, I appreciate that so very much. Young John Dent can only hope to reach the level I hope John's listening right now. Hope to reach the level, Charlie, that you have. See, he makes it easy. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Truck Trolley. Truck Trolley is just a very cool Michigan-based product. It comes out of a family-owned company. You know I love that. Andy Weiss came up with Truck Trolley. And the concept is, and if you've got a pickup, you've done this before. You find yourself either climbing up under the bed of the truck to reach the very front of it, or doing what I used to do. I had my old man hook, which was a broom hook with a hook at the end of it, so I could lean over the tailgate and reach up there and grab everything at the front of the bed. No longer. The Truck Trolley is it is a flatbed device that is not permanently affixed to your bed. It's held in with cables. You can put it in about, 5 minutes or less, and it allows you to put gear, whether it's hunting or fishing gear or golf equipment or landscaping supplies or whatever, on the bed of your truck, and then just slowly pull it out, easily, smoothly pull it out so you can reach it. I absolutely love it. TruckTrolley.com is the website. That's TruckTrolley.com. Check it out. So it looks like the weather is going to start to cooperate a little bit more. Hopefully we're going to get rid of these cold temperatures, these northeast winds, and maybe we're going to get a little bit warmer, some southwest breezes, and it's going to start to get a little more spring-like, and we'll find out. So that means that, let's see, I don't have the Angler Quest yet. I talked to Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuis. They're building it right now. So I'm pretty excited about that. But in the meantime, we can get out with my grandson, Trent, and try to get him a bird. Now, we were talking with Al Stewart before about the shooting facilities at Hillsdale College, and the fact that they are so pro-shooting oriented. I think that's cool. In fact, during this last break, I just got a text from another one of my grandsons, Carter. This is his final season of shooting trap for his high school trap team. And as soon as I get out of the studio here, I have to finish up the show and then do an offshore tackle podcast. And then Carter's going to come over to the house, and we're going to go over to the range, and I'm going to watch him shoot a high school trap. And his last time he shot, now these kids shoot 25 birds per round. So a perfect score would be 25-25 for 50 birds. Carter's last time, he shot a 23-23. Now, that's a really darn good score. And I just appreciate the fact so much that so many high schools across our state are getting behind and supporting their high school trap shooting teams. There's nothing but good comes from this, right? Kids learn to respect a gun. They learn safe gun handling practices, and they learn how to shoot trap. I mean, it's a win-win-win, and I just absolutely I love it. I'm behind it 100%. In fact, every year I help support his trap shooting efforts because I just think it's just a wonderful thing. What else here? Oh, don't forget that May is the time here in Michigan to apply for your bear and elk your bear and elk applications. You're applying for a bear license or an elk hunting license. Do it. I'm going to, but I'm telling you right now, you're not going to get an elk tag. It's not going to happen. Okay, you're throwing $5 towards the state, and you're not going to get an elk tag. If you look at it from that point of view, that you're helping to support the process, and if a miracle strikes, and you do happen to get an elk tag, which is not going to happen, it's not going to happen. Don't get excited about it. But if some miracle comes along and God decides to bless you with an elk tag, it's just a bonus. But you can't get one until you apply, right? Oh, Charlie, my clock stopped on me, so give me like a 1 minute, will you? Oh, okay. All right. I appreciate that. Oh, and by the way, before I forget here, this is Mother's Day weekend. God bless mothers. You are the glue that holds our families together. I am so blessed. My mother is still on this earth, and she's a wonderful person. Happy Mother's Day. My wife, Denise, is just a fantastic person. She loves her entire family so much. My girls, my kids, my daughter-in-law, they're mothers now. This is my daughter Shelby's first Mother's Day. It's all good. So God bless you, mothers. We love you so very much. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Appreciate you being along with me this week. There are a lot of things you could be doing right now. I mean, from media content alone, you could be, the things you could be viewing online, the podcasts you could be listening to, the other radio shows, God forbid, you could be listening to. I mean, there are a lot of things vying for your attention these days, more than ever. And so as a consumer, a media consumer, it's great for you. It's great for me, right? Because there are a lot of different options. But that means there's a lot of competition. And the fact that you are hearing my voice right now, whether it is the broadcast version of the show or the podcast version of the show, it means so very much to me. Again, I would not be able to do this for so many years without your support, and it truly does mean a lot to me. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for that support. I also have to thank my good friend, wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, for his loyalty and friendship over all these years. I mean, we've worked together on the TV show. Now he's with me every week to wrap up each week's radio show, and he's here once again. David, welcome back.
How's it going, Michael?
You know, I don't think it could be better, actually. So I appreciate you asking.
Great.
How about you?
Same here. Things are just great in my life now.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. And, of course, we're talking about can we call it a part-time gig, or do you feel like it's full-time?
No, it's a part-time gig.
Part-time gig, just about right?
Just on the weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
And that's at the King's Dish in Standish, if I remember right.
Correct. You met him at the Wednesday Night Live.
Yeah, real nice guy. And we do plan to try to make it up there and see you, so I'm looking forward to that. But we'll give you a heads up before we do that.
All right, good, because he definitely owes you a meal.
Well, I don't know about that, but it'll be fun just to check out the facilities. And what do you have for us this week, Dave?
Well, we got a stuffed trout with morels and shrimp.
Oh, nice.
A small stream trout season is open, and right now, to me, small stream trout, like the 10 to 14 inches, are the best tasting because they eat bugs and all of the invertebrates that are in the water, and man, it just doesn't get any better flavor-wise to me.
Let's hear it.
All right. Well, we got. You need about 4 to 6 trout, anywhere from 10 to 14 inches. And you need a teaspoon each of garlic, ginger, and tarragon, a couple of eggs beaten up well, 3 to 4 cups of breadcrumbs, and a couple ounces of any soft cheese, or it doesn't have to be soft cheese. You could use shredded cheddar or anything like that in this dish. 6 ounces of diced up shrimp. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on the size of the fish you got. About a pound of morels or your favorite mushrooms. If you're going to use morels, after you pick them, you want to cut them in half, soak them in your sink with enough water to float them, and move them around a lot to dislodge any of the sand. And then you want to dice them about medium fine. A dash of soy, a dash of Tabasco, a couple, 2-3 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese, a teaspoon or so of chopped parsley, 1/3 of a cup of onions diced up fine. And what you want to do is add all of these dry ingredients together, and then add the liquid ingredients and mix well. If it's a little dry, you could actually put a little milk with this so that it'll hold together. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut the fish and remove the gills and leave the heads on. Bone the fish from the inside out. We showed that on the TV numerous times. You take a real sharp knife and then run it along the inside of the rib cage on both sides. Take your thumb and finger and run that down the side of the fish on the inside and pull out that whole rib cage right out. And you want to rinse it lightly to avoid any flavor loss. And then you want to pack the cavity with the stuffing, the fish's stuffing. Put a small amount of olive oil in a fry pan, dredge the fillets in flour and brown in a fry pan. Put them in the oven at about 350 degrees, and it's going to take 15 to 20 minutes because you got egg in there, so you want to get it up to about 180 degrees on the inside to be safe for salmonella. And so in the same time that the fish is in the oven, you want to take a small saute pan, combine butter, parsley, lemon, white wine, and simmer it for 4 or 5 minutes until it's reduced thick and creamy, and you want to burn that alcohol flavor off. So you're going to put that down, put the fish on top of it, and enjoy. To me, this is the ultimate in flavor for fish. It just doesn't get any better. I don't know. As a kid, did you fish a lot of small streams?
Oh my gosh, I lived on Cedar Creek, chasing little brookies. And it's interesting you even bring this up, Dave, because I was on that side of the state, the west side of the state, earlier in the week, and I actually drove by Cedar Creek where I used to fish. And it brought back all these memories. So the fact that you're doing this small stream trout recipe this week is perfect timing. You're a genius.
Oh, that's great. I used to fish Silver Creek and Buck Creek and Gordon's Creek religiously. I knew every hole where any fish could be had from. I loved it. This was my ultimate fishing experiences.
Oh, that's wonderful. David, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. As are you. As I said at the beginning of this segment, if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason for me to do this. And I'm not ready to retire. People say, Avery, when are you going to retire? When they carry me out of the studio, feet first. Of course, my plans are not God's plans, right? Charlie looked at me and said, don't do that. Not my plans. My name is Mike Avery. This is Outdoor Magazine. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com.